Test, test, 1, 2.
Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to place on record that during the course of the day's proceedings, perhaps at the end, Advocate Maleka will be placing on record certain applications received from implicated parties and their legal representatives. For the present, by your leave, Ms. Mentor will be led by Advocate Sello.
Thank you, Mr. Pretorius. Ms. Sello.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you.
Good morning.
Chair, today we present the testimony of Ms. Mabel Petronella Vytjie Mentor.
Yes.
Before the witness takes the oath, Chair, I need to place on record that on Friday, Mr. Mokoena delivered an opening address for this phase. And this phase concerns terms 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. On Friday, he led the evidence of Mr. Jonas. And in terms of 1.1, I am leading the evidence of Ms. Mentor.
Okay, thank you.
If I may just get some housekeeping issues out of the way as well. We had a discussion that is Advocate Mokoena, myself, and I think Advocate Maleka as well. We are going to submit Ms. Mentor's statement in bundles. Now, for purposes of the Commission's record, I would like an indication of how do we number them. Mr. Jonas had the C series. Do we continue with the C or do we start the D series?
Well, I would rely on a suggestion from the legal team because they are the ones who are organizing what comes first, what comes second, and what would be more convenient in terms of finding the documents when we need them, when there are many documents before the Commission.
The sense, and that it seems to accord with the general view, is that perhaps best Ms. Mentor start the D series. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The second issue I would like to raise is that Ms. Mentor appears before you today, Chair, on a very narrow issue, and that pertains only to 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 of the terms of reference. Her statement is accordingly confined to the issues arising therein. She may have other information that is relevant to this commission and that pertains to other terms of reference. And to the extent that she will be called as a witness in regard to those, she shall make appropriate statements at that time. With your leave then, Chair, I present Ms. Mentor.
Thank you, Ms. Silo, and you can do the oath, administer the oath.
Could you please state your full names for the record?
Mabel Petronella Vytjie Mentor.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, I don't.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give today shall be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Mentor, you should have files before you. Chair, I do apologize. That's what the most important person in this room does not have her files before her.
How does that happen? Has somebody also told her what to press when she speaks?
I will address that soon.
Okay.
Should be 3. Ms. Mentor, a third file is being obtained for you. In the meantime, as the Chair correctly points out, the mic in front of you on the extreme right has got a button. Each time you press that button, the light, I think, around the microphone should go on, indicating that it is on. I listened to your oath, and your voice is pretty soft. Apparently, these microphones are not the best, because the people at the back either struggle to hear us. So I would request you bring the microphone closer to yourself and raise your voice. I know that with the passage of time, naturally your voice will drop, so please permit me to remind you from time to time, if it does, to raise your voice. Where's the third file? See it? That's it. Now, I need to explain the different files before you. There is a first file. If you look at the spine of the files, it should be titled Mentor Bundle. Mentor Evidence Bundle. Do you locate it? Thank you.
I do.
The second one should be labeled Mentor Supplementary Bundle. And the third one should be applications in terms of rules of SCC. You have the three. Chair, if I may confirm that the Chair has those.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Before I turn to the contents of these bundles, Chair, there is another file, but I'm not submitting it into record. We call it internally a correspondence file. There is one for Ms. Mentor. The purpose of that file is simply to collate all documentation relating to compliance with the rules. As such, that file will have correspondence between the Commission and various third parties. It will include all Rule 3.3 notices issued in respect of a statement received, and it will also include all returns of service for notices served on the implicated persons. I do not intend to refer to that file. I just want to place on record that compliance with Rules 3.3 and 3.4 to confirm compliance therewith, but otherwise I will not be referring to that file. I would like, Chair, to draw your attention to The supplementary bundle, it has an index starting at page 1 to pages 2 to 7. If maybe the chair's file is complete, but I can confirm that the witnesses file and the files that will be going onto the commission site do not have pages 1 to 5, as per the index. That's the correspondence between Parliament and the commission.
Mine starts at 6.
Yes, then that is correct.
Okay.
The page before 6 explains that these have been omitted because that constitutes correspondence, and that goes to what I call the correspondence file.
Okay.
Okay. So it would start at 6. So for purposes of this supplementary, we don't have pages 1 to 5. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, can we turn to what we call mentor evidence bundle? At page 1 thereof. Yes, Chair.
Is this bundle the one that you said you proposed to be marked D?
D, I apologize. Thank you
Because
thanks
if
for
that
the
is
reminder.
the one, it's better to refer to it in that way. Otherwise, whoever reads this transcript thinks it's something else.
Indeed, I overlooked that part. Having asked the most pertinent question, I then I forget to place it on record. My apologies, Chair.
Yeah.
Mentor's evidence bundle, I propose be marked D1.
So that will be exhibit D1.
The supplementary bundle to be marked D2.
The mentor supplementary bundle will be marked exhibit D2.
And the third bundle being the applications in terms of the rules to be marked D3.
Do you need to have that marked?
Uh,
If it's just applications,
It's not just applications, Chair. In both instances, in fact, let me say that these are applications from 2 implicated persons.
Yeah.
4 notices were served, 2
Yeah.
have responded. In both instances, each has recorded a version to deal with allegations made by Ms. Mentor in respect of them, and simultaneously makes application to cross-examine Ms. Mentor. So I need to deal with their versions and put those versions to Ms. Mentor.
would it not be more convenient? I don't know if their version is in the same affidavit that is used to support an application for leave to cross-examine, but if their version is contained in a separate affidavit, separate from the application, would it not be convenient to simply take out the affidavit that contains their version and mark that separately? Because when at the end, and when I weigh evidence, I won't be needing the application.
Indeed.
But I will need the affidavit that has a version.
Unfortunately, Chair, in both cases,
Yeah.
the documents contain both the version and the application. They can't be separated.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, you propose that this be D3.
D3.
Okay.
As Mr. Pretorius indicated, Mr. Malika will be addressing you at the close of today's proceedings regarding the applications.
Yeah.
Those applications will again be addressed by Mr. Malika, and that will be dealing specifically with the application to cross-examine. By then, I will have dealt with the content of the version.
Yes, okay,
Thank you,
all
Chair.
right. Thank you. This bundle then relating to applications in terms of the rules of the commission will be marked exhibit D3.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, we have taken care of the numbering of your bundles, and I turn my attention now to you. Do you confirm that you have submitted a statement to this commission?
Yes, I do.
Please bring the mic closer to you still, thank you. Please refer to what we call D1, which is the Mentor main bundle, not the supplementary one, at page 1. That document runs until page 37. Do you confirm that that is the statement that you submitted to this commission?
Yes, I do confirm.
And is it correct that this statement you prepared with the assistance of your lawyers?
That's correct.
Do you confirm the signature appearing at page 37, that that's your signature?
I do.
Okay. You may leave the mic all in. It doesn't interfere with mine or the chair's. Chair, it just struck me when I posed the question to Ms. Mentor, she is legally represented. I needed to place her representatives on record who are in attendance today. Having started,
Well, I don't know whether it's necessary to place them on record as such, but you have mentioned, and
Yes.
because it may or may not be that they will have something to say. But if you want to mention names, you are free to do so.
I will, sir.
Yeah.
If I may, Chair, with your leave,
Yes.
it's two advocates, Advocate Nicole Lewis and Advocate Lucille Bachler,
Okay.
both instructed by Ms. Tsegofa Zopala of Weber Wenzel Attorneys,
Thank you.
and they are in attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Mentor, having confirmed your signature and that that is your statement, are there any corrections you would like to make to the statement? And if so, please indicate to the Chair where and to what extent.
Have you had a chance to read it lately?
I did, Chairperson.
Okay.
I think I'm too nervous to remember anything that I would like to correct at the moment.
Please relax. Please relax. It's quite important that if there are errors that you have picked up, you mention them up front. If there aren't any that you have picked up, then as soon as you do pick them up, let us know. Is the position that at this stage you don't remember any errors in the statement that you are able to tell us about?
Yes, Chair, I would like to say that when I pick them up, I would point them out to you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mentor. With that proviso then, can I inquire from you whether you stand by the averments made in this statement?
I do.
Your statement is structured as follows. In your first chapter, you address the question of your political role and your political history. You follow that up with a China visit in 2010. That is followed by a chapter on offer of position of minister, which in turn is followed by another chapter called disclosure of the offer. That's the offer of being made a minister. And in that regard, you separate disclosure to the Hawks and disclosure to the PP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I propose that we deal with your testimony today in the manner that it's reflected in your statement.
That's okay.
You do indicate in your statement about that you have a long history from your paragraph 9 at page 3, that you have a long history and involvement with the ANC and the UDF, and you reference the various roles you have played and portfolios you have held in government and within the political party, the ANC. Would you care to take the chairperson through that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate. I literally grew up in the mass democratic movement and in the ANC. I occupied positions for the better part of my youthful days, right into my adulthood. I served in various positions where I was elected. I participated both in overt and covert operations of the struggle for liberation. The history that I have put into my statement shows that I also occupied positions of responsibility in government. I have been entrusted with many serious positions, and there are strategic moments in which I provided leadership. There are moments in which I broke rank before, when things were not right, on the basis of what I believed was principle, and on the basis of what I believed in personally. The example I would like to raise is when historically it was never okay to wrap around the knuckles a senior official of the ruling party and a high-ranking person in the political space of the ruling party, when it had never been done before, on the basis of principle and on the basis of believing in human rights and championing them. I took on a chief whip of the majority party in Parliament when he sexually harassed a 21-year-old. It was unpopular to do so. I faced a lot of pressure in the party to abandon the mission, but I stood by it. And at the end of 2 disciplinary processes, both the complainant that I supported and the efforts that I put into that process yielded results wherein it was proven that the young lady was sexually harassed, and the result was that a chief whip had to vacate a post, not only his position in Parliament, but his position as the chief whip. In my political history, there are various occasions on which I diverted from the script. This includes particularly, the example I want to raise is when it was not fashionable for the members of Parliament that are often referred to as backbenchers to hold the executive accountable, I made it a point when I pursued my duties that I abide by the Constitution and that I follow my conscience and that I live by the oath I took when I was sworn in. At the time when I did so, to hold the executive accountable, it was often referred to as me having public spats or spats with the minister, but that was just performing my duties. I did not shy away from differing with the executive, holding them accountable as the Constitution expected, and I left a legacy as a chair of the caucus. That was one of my key operational principles and key issues on which I led the caucus, to say that it cannot be correct that members of the ruling party that are members of parliament only see their role as supporting the executive, protecting the executive, never asking them the hard questions. I would like to leave my history. So in conclusion, I want to say that I stand before you today, Chairperson, difficult as it is, in pursuant of the approach I took all my life, of breaking ranks and of differing when issues of principle are meddled with, and when things that should not be done are done. I thank you, Advocate.
Thank you, ma'am. And you deal with these issues as that you have summarized from your paragraph 9 until your paragraph 25, which should take you to page 8 of your statement. Now, if you go back to your paragraph, your page 6 at paragraph 21, you make the following statement, and I quote, "In around November 2010, I also ceased being the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises. However, I remained a member of parliament. I believe I was removed because I refused to meet with Mr. Zuma while in China on his state visit, which I deal with in detail below. I also believe I was removed from this position because I refused to assist in the closure of the SAA Indian route, which I also address below. And I believe that the reason given for my removal, that it was because of the allegations around Transnet having paid for my visit to China, was simply a ruse and attempt to discredit me." You see that? You confirm those are your words?
I do.
Now, you deal, as you said, in paragraph 21 with your China visit starting at page 9 from paragraph 26. Now, I would like you to explain to the chairperson the circumstances leading you to your being a part of the delegation and the trip to China, as set out in your statement, and permit me from time to time to possibly interject to seek clarification if and when necessary. With that in mind, please go ahead.
My trip to China, my controversial trip to China, in quotes, was preceded by plans for the committee and I to go to China in any way.
Sorry, when you say the committee, please be specific what committee you have in reference to.
The Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee of Parliament that I was a chairperson of in 2010.
Thank you.
There was a planned trip that was approved in Parliament for us to visit China, and there was agreement in the committee because of budgetary reasons and otherwise that I would go to China alone first and take a second visit with the entire portfolio committee once the budget permitted as according to the approval by Parliament. So we had that approval, the plan was made. Parliament was in recess in the month of August. Parliament always goes on recess for the month of women. We would host a women's parliament and then adjourn to go and participate in the processes of celebrating month of women on the ground in our constituencies. That period in that particular year flowed into the September holidays. So we had just risen as Parliament. I was not aware that there was going to be a presidential state visit to China. When I was contacted by state-owned enterprise of China to alert me of the state visit to China, and with the suggestion that I hasten the trip that I was to undertake ahead of the political, the portfolio committee to China to participate in the discussions there, because it was going, they pointed out that it would be desirable if, I must point out first that prior to the state visit, we had been seized with the matter of power outages as the committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you say we, will you just tell us who we is?
Thank you, Chairperson. As the Portfolio Committee of Public Enterprises, we were seized with the power outages that were bedeviling the country at the time. And we had had meetings with various SOEs that participate in ensuring that the lights remain on, which is your Eskom and Transnet. And we had various meetings with them to understand where what the problem was. And together with them, we had made a public call to anyone and everyone, both nationally and internationally, to come to the fore and work with the state-owned enterprises to assist South Africa to emerge out of the crisis of power shortage. In that process of engagements, we had sat together with Telkom and Transnet in meetings in Cape Town. There are meetings that I would attend as a chairperson with them, and we would be sometimes discussing with people that are expressing, facilitating that they come together, the will to work with them to ensure that the power outages are done away with. One of those entities that we were meeting is a state-owned company of China the very one that would have advised me of the pending state visit and suggested I join it. They were saying from their side, if all the things that we had been discussing prior to, with the SOEs, prior to the state visit, are brought under the umbrella of the state visit, that would assist in shortening the red tape to facilitate the cooperation of Chinese SOEs and South African ones.
Thank you. Now, I understand the background to your going to China. At paragraph 26, most importantly, you say you undertook the trip as part of the presidential state visit to that country. On what do you base that assertion?
On the fact that whilst I knew about the state visit to China, I did my homework and I contacted until I arrived at the relevant parties. That would be the DTI, that was the lead department for the presidential visit, and that would also be Transnet that eventually paid for my accommodation and travel.
So is the chairperson to understand that you went on that visit as part of the DTI delegation?
Yes, the DTI delegation was twofold. There was government/state contingency of the participants of the visit, and I fell under that category. And there was a contingency of business people that were brought together by BUSA together with DTI. So I essentially became part of the state visit as an MP that was facilitated by DTI.
For the record, Chair, and will you confirm, Ms. Mentor, that the Commission or the Secretariat requested from you any telephone handsets and or computers that you still have in your possession that you were using at the time? Do you confirm that?
I do.
And for the record, Chair, the Secretariat imaged the computer handed up by Ms. Mentor. It was one laptop. And from that extracted certain documentation I would like to refer the witness to. In your main bundle, Ms. Mentor, please go to page 217, 218, and 219.
The main bundle being
Main-
D1.
D1. I should remember to call it that. D1, I apologize, Chair. D1.
217?
217 to 219.
Okay.
Now, please have regard to the 3 pages and just briefly explain to the chairperson what those are. Please have regard to pages 217, 218, and 219. I would like to place on record, Chair, that those documents were retrieved from Ms. Mentor's laptop, handed to the Secretariat, and I would invite Ms. Mentor to explain to the Commission what those documents are.
The document on 217 is my letter to Transnet
Yes.
requesting that they provide financial assistance for me to undergo the trip as Parliament was in recess at the moment and I could not access financial assistance from Parliament. Document 218 is an invitation letter from DTI that I received. Nobody could go on the state visit if they did not have this invitation.
Okay. And is that the invitation you say you received from the DTI?
Yes, thank you.
I would like to place on record that the Commission requested documentation from the DTI pertaining to this trip to China, and these were received. Chair, they form part of D1 and appear from pages 168 to 216.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, Ms. Mentor, when the Commission received these documents, we perused them, and I would like to refer you to page 209. That is the list from 209 to 216. That is the list of confirmed guests or people who traveled on this trip provided by the DTI. They are numbered sequentially, and if you go to page 212, and Chair, I apologize for the small print, we couldn't enlarge it. Against item 180, 180.
I beg your pardon?
At page 212,
Yes.
if you look at the extreme left column, that's the numbering of the items. Now, against item 180, could you read into the record what's stated there?
Ms. Mabel Petronella Mentor, Chair, Public Enterprises, Parliament.
Thank you. Do you propose to the chairperson that, at least as far as the DTI is concerned, based on the documentation they have submitted, you were part of the confirmed list on the trip?
I do.
We are then at a point where you are a confirmed delegate on the DTI list. In terms of your letter at page 217 of D1, you have requested funding from Transnet. Were you successful in that regard?
I was successful, ma'am.
From paragraph 31 of your statement at page 10, have you located it?
Yes, ma'am.
From that paragraph, you start with the actual travel. Could you read into the record paragraph 31?
I was required to fly via Dubai as I was a very late addition to the state visit. When I received my flight details from Transnet, I noticed that my ticket had been booked in first class on Emirates Airline. When I inquired why this was so, I was informed that most flights were fully booked as there were many groupings from both business and government going to China. I was informed that Transnet was only able to secure me a first class ticket on Emirates.
And you did board that aeroplane, that Emirates flight to China on the allocated date?
Via Dubai, correct?
Via Dubai. At paragraph 34, you deal with the contact person at the DTI at the time.
Paragraph 34, not page 34.
No, paragraph, sorry, 33 actually, 33, page 11 of your statement. And that person, can you state on record the details of that person, the name?
Yes.
Please do.
The contact person I was directed to was Iqbal Sharma, who was the Deputy Director General, DDG, at Trade and Industry Department at the time.
Starting from paragraph 34,
Ms. Silo,
Chair.
you have asked the witness to tell us the name of the contact person reflected in paragraph 33.
Yes.
But I think that information or that evidence coming as it did, it's without context. Isn't there something that happened before paragraph 33 that's relevant to the important significance of that contact person?
Indeed so, Chair, and that would be
Yes.
set out in paragraph 32.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let her cover
and-
that so that the listener understands the whole story. I know you, you have read the statement, she has read the statement, I've read the statement, but a lot of people haven't read the statement, so they don't understand the context.
It's quite correct, Chair. I'm indebted to the Chair. Ms. Mentor, you understand the Chair correctly points out that we skip certain important averments in your statement because I think we've become so familiar with it. You have read into the record paragraph 33. Can you go back to paragraph 32, which, as the Chair correctly points out, is the context of what is stated in 33? And perhaps it's only appropriate that you should read that paragraph into the record so that the reader or the listener can contextualize what's in paragraph 33. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Advocate. Once Transnet agreed to pay for my accommodation and travel, I made inquiries from the Department of International Relations as to the details of joining the state visit as per my invitation from the Chinese. They explained the process to me and then directed me to seek accreditation with the Department of Trade and Industry, as it was that department that was the lead department in relation to the state visit.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. Then I think that properly contextualizes what is in paragraph 33. From paragraph 34, in fact, in 34 and 35, you deal with what transpired while you were in flight to China via Dubai. And could you talk to what transpired in that plane or in those planes?
When I was aboard the flight to Dubai, a certain young man who was accompanied, who was not alone, knocked at the cubicle at my cubicle and introduced himself as Duduzane. I must say that there was a time, at that time, what I could remember very vividly was Zuma, and there was a time when I was Duduzane Duduzile was not important, but what stuck with my mind was Zuma. I recognized him from media clips with his short dreadlocks at that time. He introduced himself to me and introduced another person. He was with two people. I recall the other person that he introduced to me. He said that I was doing a sterling job in Parliament. He was glad to meet me, and he introduced me to, he was with two people, but what stands out to me in my memory is the gentleman, the other gentleman of the two that he introduced to me. He later also requested me if he could go and introduce me to another person. The two gentlemen that he was with were Indian looking, and the other man that he took me to the cubicle of was a black man, an African man. He said to me, "Can I introduce you to my chairman?" I took that to mean chairman in the business field, because having read in the media, I knew Mr. Young Zuma to be in the business space. That person, he introduced him to me as Mr. Fana Hlongwane. I must say that sometimes I make a mistake of Hlongwa and Hlongwane.
Okay. And on that score, I would like to pose a question to you, but before I do so, do you confirm that you have published a book in 2017 titled No Holy Cows?
I do.
Chair, I would like to make reference on a very small aspect to that book, and I don't necessarily tender it into evidence. In that book, Ms. Mentor, at page 137, I don't think you have the book before you, so with your permission, I'll read the paragraph. It's page 137, last paragraph. On that page, it reads, and I quote, "The black man that the son of the president was introducing to me was Brian Hlongwa, open brackets, I already knew his name and his face from various newspaper reports previously," close quote, close inverts and close quote. Now, in your statement at 35, you say it was Mr. Fana Hlongwane. Can you explain to the chairperson why the discrepancy, and now, perhaps with hindsight and knowing people better, which is the correct name that you intend to refer to?
There is an inaccuracy in the book about Brian Hlongwane.
Brian Hlongwa,
Hlongwa,
to be precise. Yeah.
thank you. It comes as an issue of confusing Hlongwa and Hlongwane. But I know for certain that that man was not the former MEC for Health in Gauteng, because I stand by what I wrote in the book, that I recognized him from media report. So the mistake is not in the statement before the commission, it's in the books, and it arises from Hlongwane confusion.
Okay. I'm sure the chairperson has made a note of that. Now, you confirm that you have appeared before the public protector.
Before you proceed, Ms. Selo, aren't there two things in the statement you made about Mr. Fana Hlongwane and what's in the book, in the sense that, as I understand, the book also gives a name that's different from the name you give. There's not just the surname. It's both the name of the person and the surname that are different from the name and the surname that you have given. You have explained the surname part, but you haven't explained the name part, Brian Hlongwa, Brian and Fana.
Indeed, Chair, thank you. Ms. Mentor, would you care to?
Chairperson, I am a teacher by profession. In my career as a teacher, when I pull a surname from my memory, it might pull an associated name. And it's a mistake I cannot explain. That I can only say that because when I wrote the book. And also, both Mr. Fana Hlongwa and Hlongwane had been on the media a lot. So, for me, Hlongwa always goes with Fana, and Hlongwane always goes with Brian. So I think that's how the mistake came about. That once Hlongwane pulls out of my memory, it pulls together with the name Brian. I hope I'm still not mixing the Hlongwa and Hlongwane.
Please have regard to page 11, your paragraph 35. Last sentence of that paragraph, that's where you provide the name.
Oh, yes. Whenever I pull, when my memory brings forward Hlongwa, that surname comes to my memory with a name, and that name is Brian. When my memory pulls Hlongwane from the media reports, it pulls a name together with a surname. So why it is Brian Hlongwa in the book is because I mix up Hlongwa with Hlongwane, but when Hlongwa pulls out of memory, it pulls together with Brian.
Chair,
Yes.
does that answer the chairperson's question?
Well, I don't think she can give any more than explanation than she has. I think I just say as long as she doesn't call me Zondi.
I might, Chair.
Please proceed, Ms. Selo.
Chair. And if I may add, Ms. Mentor, for all our sakes, please don't make that error. Thank you.
I'll make a mental note.
You testified before the public protector when the public protector was investigating or looking into the question of possible state capture. You confirm that?
I do.
We are making available, Chair, the transcript of Ms. Mentor's interview by the public protector. It's in bundle D1, starting at page 38. It's the bundle with your statement.
I'm sorry, Ms. Selo.
Yes, Chair.
Having read the statement myself, is there nothing you are leaving that, according to her, happened on the flight that is relevant?
We are not done with the flight, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to finish off the question of the identity of the person, yes. Now, if you have regard to the transcript, it starts at page 38. You located it?
Just dealing with the issues attached to 37.
Oh, okay. Have you located it? And Chair, if I may just place on record probably why Ms. Mentor is confused, the Chair will notice that Ms. Mentor's statement goes up to page 37. It is then followed by a series of documents numbered 37 bracket A to 37 bracket V for victory. And the reason for that is when the bundles were being produced and paginated, Ms. Mentor's annexures were erroneously left out. So because they were already paginated, we needed to start a new series of 37A to V so that the documents are together with your statement. You understand? Now, the PP's transcript itself starts at page 38. And for the record, that is not part of your annexures. The PP's transcript is a document sourced by the Commission. Chair, just to note, from page 38, The transcript notes that is a meeting held between the Public Protector, South Africa, and Ms. Vytjie Mentor, dated 21st July 2016. Now, if I may inquire from Ms. Mentor. Ms. Mentor, do you recall how many times you had a meeting or interview with the Public Protector? Was it once? Was it more than once?
It was once, ma'am.
Once. That answer is important in this regard, Chair. The Public Protector report itself, at page 70, states that, at paragraph 70, I think, no, page 70, states that this interview took place on the 22nd of July. So there's a discrepancy between the date on the actual transcript and what the PP indicates. However, that is, in our view, of no moment. One of them might just be a typo. And as the witness has indicated, she's had only one interview.
Okay.
Now, in that interview, Ms. Mentor, you deal with the flight, or this issue about your flight to Dubai, from page 61. And in particular from line 24, after you indicate that they booked you on the Emirates flight, which flew via Dubai. The second last sentence, you see that? At page 61?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have this conversation then with the PP, Public Protector, at pages 62 to 63. Now, if you have regard to page 64, at the top of page 64, you state, and I quote, "So that was the end of it as far as the leg to Dubai was concerned." Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, I've had regard to pages 61 to 64, as I've pointed out to you, and I do not see a reference to a Mr. Brian Hlongwa or a Mr. Fana Hlongwane. Did you inform the Public Protector about this aspect? And if not, why not?
If I did not inform the Public Protector, it would be just that an issue of memory at the time.
So you say you simply forgot to bring it to the Public Protector's attention. But you stand by your assertion in your statement that this introduction, as you explain, in your paragraph 35 to Mr. Fana Hlongwane indeed did take place.
Yes.
Thank you. From your paragraph 36, you then arrive in China. And you deal with your China stay.
Oh, I beg yours, ma'am. Paragraph 36 or page 36?
Paragraph 36. Before I go there, the chairperson had pointed out something I had forgotten, that there are other issues you deal with on the flight to Dubai that I haven't canvassed with you now in your oral testimony. And this is set out in paragraph 34. Could you
Page?
please? 11. Of your statement, yes.
I must just say, Ms. Silo and Ms. Mentor, that preferably you should give your evidence without too much reading. If you have had a chance to refresh your memory through your statement so that it can come across as you recall the events. Obviously, if there is something you have forgotten, you can have regard to the statement, but it's much better if you just speak to the Commission, tell the Commission what happened, what you witnessed, what you were told. Tell a story, in other words.
Thank you,
Ms.
Chair.
Silo, thank you.
You understand, Ms. Mentor. Then, with that understanding, the Chair properly pointed out that in paragraphs 34 and 35, there are other aspects you deal with which you had not yet testified to. You confirm that. Please then inform the chairperson what else you want the chairperson to know about the flight to Dubai, which is set out in your statement.
Maybe don't say what else. Maybe you must say whatever it is that you haven't told me so far that happened on the flight. This is the chance for you to tell me, so then you can cover whatever you think you haven't told me. That's relevant for our purposes.
Indeed, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. One of the two men that was with Duduzane and one that he introduced to me had pointed out to me that his brother was already ahead of the state visit, that he was already in China, and that he was leading the advance team for the president. I actually did not know what an advance team is. It was explained to me that it's a team that goes ahead of the president visit to do logistics, to check security and all those things. So he said that to me with pride, and so that's one of the things that's coming to my memory about that introduction.
Do you know the names of the people you were introduced to on that flight?
At that time, it was not particularly important for me it was not a significant thing for me to make an effort to remember the names. But later, much later on, because of events that occurred both in China and events that were in the media and reported things repeatedly in the media, I came to what I took note of was not the first name, but the last name. But I subsequently got to know, much as I did not take cognizance of the first name, that that person's name was Rajesh Gupta.
And in your statement, can you clarify who informed you that the other one was part of the president's advance team?
The person that I later came to know the first name of being Rajesh.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mr. Rajesh Gupta, as you now understand, was on that flight? Or was he on that flight with you?
Yes, Chair.
But at that stage, you did not know his name?
I did not pay particular attention to the name, neither did I memorize it, the first name.
Oh, but you would have been told, but you might not have
Paid attention.
Yes, okay. And is he the one who told you that his brother was already ahead in China?
Yes, Chair.
Did he give the name of his brother at that time?
Chair,
Or did he just say, my brother is already ahead?
I recall him saying my brother is already ahead.
And at that time, you didn't know which brother,
Yes, Chair.
but you subsequently got to know which brother he was talking about?
Yes, Chair. It has been initially when I was preparing myself for the PP, for appearing before the public protector. And even at the time when I appeared before the public protector, I was still mixing up the names of the other two brothers, but not the name of Rajesh. I was always mixing up the name of Ajay and Atul. So in the flight, I only recall that the person that I came to know as Rajesh told me that His brother leads the advance team of the president and is already in China.
And how did you get to attach the name to the person that Mr. Rajesh Gupta said was his brother who was already ahead in China?
Because of what happened in China and because of my encounter in Sahara subsequent to the China visit and in the Saxonwold, and I later became able to distinguish who is who in terms of the names.
You were told on the flight by the person that you understood to be Mr. Rajesh Gupta that my brother is already ahead in China. So how soon after that did you come to be able to know which brother? Was that during the China trip? Was it after you had returned home? Was it after you had been to Saxonwold?
An incident, two things that happened in China. When I got accredited, I was assisted by the person I later came to be as Rajesh with the accreditation because he's the first person I spotted when I tried to register myself. And I had been assisted by another person for the banquet. Then another incident where somebody spoke to me through the telephone of the hotel. I knew that person was a Gupta who spoke to me, but I concretely knew the difference between Atul and AJ once I was back home, and my trip to Saxonwold and assisted me to distinguish them in terms of physique. And then when I met the public protector, whereas I could separate physique, I could identify them. I later only became certainly aware because I had marked one of them that I met in Sahara and with a ring. And I had also marked the difference in obesity in the size of the two. And then I made a special note much later also to familiarize myself in terms of distinguishing the names, because to me, Ajay and Atul are two confusing Indian names.
Chair, if I'm, with your permission,
Yes.
that is the next chapter I'm going to move on to.
Yes.
And perhaps it might assist if Ms. Mentor takes it sequentially,
Yeah.
because at this juncture, we have about arrived in China.
Yes.
And her next topic is to inform you what transpired in China, what contacts she had with whom, until she then comes back to South Africa. Then we take it the next step. With your permission.
Okay, you may proceed, yeah.
I'm ready to proceed, Chair. I see it's 11:12. I think we'll be in China for 2 days, so should I start and stop at 15:15 or?
Well, or maybe let's use this 4 minutes. Maybe
Okay.
you'll just ask
I'm happy to.
a few
I'll
questions,
let you
yeah.
know when it's
Okay.
15:15. Ms. Mentor, in your statement, having dealt then with the introductions to the various people, you state, by the time I arrived in China, it was already the first day of the state visit, so you are in China, according to paragraph 36. Please inform the chair what happened from the moment you landed in China?
I had to get accredited. So I proceeded, I was on crutches. I proceeded to a hall where accreditations and things were done. Because I was late, the hall was filled with people moving around that I think were late for registration or accreditation like I was, and there were various tables. So I looked around and I spotted the gentleman that Duduzani had had introduced to me on the flight. And then I approached him, I summoned him, I approached him and I asked him to assist me with accreditation. He led me to a table where I was accredited. During that day, there was a breakaway session. Apart from the accreditation, both for the business arrangement and for the state banquet that was going to take place that evening, that I also got accredited for at a different table. So from one table, when I did the one accreditation, the person I came to know as Rajesh took me to another table where I got accredited for the banquet. Then from there, I proceeded to a meeting place where I would say issues like house rules for the meetings were laid out. That's a separate hall from where the accreditations and registrations were being done. And this meeting, in this place, Minister Rob Davis, as the Minister of the lead department for the state visit, did the first remarks. There were other ministers in the room. There were other people that I knew. Like I was seated next to Ms. Lindiwe Zulu. At that time, she was not yet a minister. I think she had just ceased being an envoy to Zimbabwe for the president, and she was at that time, if I'm not wrong, a parliamentary, but she was not a minister. Minister Kwane Maite Mashabane was also there. There were these gentlemen, oh, I forgot to say that the trio that I later came to firmly know in my mind that are the Gupta brothers were seemingly in charge of the procedures and processes.
Well, I'm sorry, Ms. Mentor, we are going to take a short break at this stage. It's 11:15. We are going to be back at 11:30. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Ms. Silo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before I proceed with Ms. Mentor, I would like to, with your leave, make a very brief application. Bundle D1, Ms. Mentor's main bundle, includes statements, copies of statements received from the Hawks. The Hawks, in response to a subpoena issued on Friday, are delivering the originals of those statements. And with your leave, I would request that they place themselves on record, hand them over, and we take full custody of those statements, the originals.
Why must they place that on record? Why must they, that is the Hawks, as I understand what you are saying?
The concern had been, because they are originals, and it's in response to a subpoena,
Yeah,
that they deliver on record those documents before we take custody. We are in your hands, Chair. If you advise us to sign for them without the necessity of them going on record, we are happy to.
yeah, I think if they have given them to you and you make sure that they are safe, and when I need them, they are made available, that should be fine.
Indeed, Chair.
I don't see that there should be a problem.
And thank you, Chair. May I turn around and instruct Mr. Mabunda, the attorney, accordingly?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Coming back then to the testimony of Ms. Mentor. Ms. Mentor, when we broke for tea, you were still,
Actually, I think probably it's the secretary who should sign for them, isn't it? The secretary of the commission for records.
Mr. Mabunda will attend to that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
When we broke for tea, Ms. Mentor, you were still addressing the chair and telling him about the events of your first day of arriving in China. You were on the point of being assisted with accreditation and obtaining accreditation. Can you then take the story from there?
Advocate, am I allowed to take you back just slightly?
With the chair's permission.
Yes, you may do so.
Thank you, Chair. The question of how I came to know who is who of the brothers, it had never been a problem for me to identify them. If somebody shows me a picture or if they parade, I'd always been able to point them out, but I'd always had a challenge, especially the two, not Rajesh, Atul and Ajay. I had to later devise a means, apart from having marked them with the ring and with the difference in physique, I had to learn their names by eventually creating a formula for myself in my mind that says, there is Atul and there is Ajay. I know them in my mind, I can point them out, anyone can separate them, I know them, their physiques and their faces, but who is who in terms of the names? I use the issue of who is elder and who is younger, and I had to drill it into my mind to say that in the alphabet, J comes before T, and therefore, Ajay is the elder brother, and Atul is the younger brother. So I had done a whole lot of exercise wanting to command the difference in their names, but I never had a challenge of separating them out in terms of pointing them out or separating them out through their faces or through their physics.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, from your paragraph 39, you are now in China, you deal with the roles played by the different Gupta brothers, if I may refer to them in those terms. Can you take the chair through that?
In the meeting room where the Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Rob Davis, opened the proceedings, he handed over to the person that I later came to know for sure is a Gupta brother. They were milling all over. They were in charge, so to speak, because they wore tags around their necks that officialized them. And that officialized them, as far as I'm concerned, in a weightier manner than other people, in that a whole lot of people carried one or two tags, especially mostly carried two tags around their necks, one or two. They carried 3 tags. I could never determine what the 3rd tag was, but in my mind that gave them a very officialized, important role that they were playing in the room. And from time to time, Minister Rob Davis would defer to one of them to explain the procedures, to address the audience. The others, apart from the one that stood in front with Minister Rob Davis, the other ones were moving in and out and freely talking to and associating with other people in the hall and ministers.
If I may interject at this point, how many brothers in all are there in China, firstly?
The total sum that at the total tally eventually,
Sorry, my question is how many Gupta brothers, I should have qualified. How many of the Gupta brothers were in China at this time that you refer to?
you mean at the time in the hall or for
Just-
the duration of the visit?
Just generally when you were in China in the first day,
3 of them.
okay? And you indicated to the chairperson that the minister deferred to one of them mostly. Are you able to distinguish which of the 3 the minister deferred to?
My memory does not serve me very well in terms of, but it was not Rajesh.
Okay. You may proceed.
Thank you. There were a few ministers that were there. I've already pointed their name. Something happened that really hurt me and disturbed me in that hall, that I knew the ministers fairly well. I've worked very closely with them before. Rob Davis in particular served under me when I was chair of caucus. He was chair of Trade and Industry Portfolio Committee, and we worked very closely together in a forum called strategy meetings for the ANC in Parliament. Minister Maite Nkwani, Mashaban, if I'm saying the name correctly, I was very close to her. I previously traveled to Tunisia with her. But their reception to me in that meeting hall was extremely cold. And that unsettled me and that unnerved me. People were allowed to engage the chairing people that were Minister Rob Davis and a Gupta brother that were in charge of the proceedings, and people were allowed to raise their hands from the floor to speak. My hand was raised from the beginning to the end, and I was not recognized. And that hurt me very badly. There are companies belonging to the Chinese government, which are state-owned entities, that I was going to meet, because the purpose of that meeting in the hall was to facilitate that people become grouped into sectors. Sectors and industries. So, and it was explained that you may participate, or you might cross, you might be interested in one sector and one industry, but you may cross over to the other, or you may organize yourself. And it was read out which sector, there were various halls, which sector would meet where. This is the housekeeping that I alluded to earlier on. The Chinese state-owned enterprises that I had been in discussion with, together with Transnet and Eskom, back in South Africa, and the ones that we were going to meet together alongside the state visit, subsequently converged around me. I was clearly hurt. I did not want them to pick up the vibe that I was kind of being isolated and treated badly. And in my mind, I was wondering whether there has been a pre-discussion somewhere that I should be treated in this way. But at the end of the day, I did not attend the ceremony. The initial ceremony of the day. I ended up in that hall, and we sat together as a sector or a cluster, as we had planned, because they converged around me. But then I started to worry a lot about the treatment that I was receiving. And immediately in that hall, I don't know if I say this in my statement, but I began to wonder if it was even necessary to attend the banquet.
Before we get to the banquet, for clarification, you state that you did not attend the initial ceremony. What ceremony are you referring to?
There was what I call the pomp ceremony, which is a fanfare of, it's a ceremony that's held, it's an outdoor ceremony with the necessary decor and fanfare, and that's the part that I did not attend because I arrived late.
Okay, thank you. I interjected, you may proceed with your testimony.
So that is the gist of what happened in that hall.
Did you attend the proceedings of the day in that hall until they ended on the day?
Yes, I did not leave early. I did not remember leaving the proceedings early.
Then what happened for the rest of the day?
I began to toy with the idea of whether to attend the state banquet or not, already in that hall because of the hostile treatment. Then, at the end of the day, I retreated to my hotel room, and I firmly decided whilst I was in my hotel room that it would not be a good idea for me to go and mingle with people that are hostile towards me. And I decided that I would skip the state banquet and I would sit in my room. I took a shower and then I ordered room service.
Before you proceed to room service, am I right to think that you do not ascribe the way you say you were treated by some of the ministers, you do not ascribe that to anything connected with with what this commission is investigating? It might be something else that's unconnected.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I
May
think
continue?
may I proceed?
Please do.
I think the other issue that I considered, apart from the hostility, was also the issue of, I tried around with the issue of what I would get dressed in. But once I took a decision that I'm not going, I took a shower and I ordered room service. I was watching a bit of television because the events of the day were being replayed. You know, I watched China Central Television. Then suddenly my room phone rang. And a lady from reception informed me that there are people that were asking for my room number and that would like to talk to me. Apparently they first wanted to come to my room, but they asked to speak to me on the phone. I asked her to describe them to me. She said there were two men. She said there were two men, and she said that they were Indian looking or Indian. I eventually asked her to put one of them on the line to speak to me. And the person on the telephone identified himself as a Gupta. He informed me that he has been sent by the president.
I'm sorry. Did he give his name and then the surname, or did he simply say, I am Gupta, or I'm one of the Gupta brothers, or what exactly did he say?
He may have said his name. What stuck to my mind was the surname.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. He told me that he was sent by President, who was President Zuma at the time, to come and fetch me, to drive me to meet President Zuma at the Chinese State Guest House where the president was putting up. And he told me that the president would like to meet me before he heads to the state banquet. I was concerned. I asked this person how he knew where I was putting up, the hotel that I was putting up in. I asked him a few questions that were meant to ascertain if he's truly South African. Earlier on, he had, this person, these two men had said to the hotel receptionist, they are South African and they are part of the state visit. And this person told me the same thing, and that he's coming to pick me up at the behest of the president. And I asked him a number of questions. I asked him how he knew my hotel. I told him I was concerned that a person I've never met before, and a person, I would not allow a man, foreign, so to speak, foreign in that it's not my acquaintance, to purport to me that he is supposed to drive me to the president, and I accept that. And I render myself to being driven by a man or two men in a foreign country, just on the basis of what those people are telling me over a hotel telephone line. So he went on to give me information that was to convince me that indeed he's part of this state visit. Indeed, he is South African. Indeed, he's sent by the president. Sorry. He told me that he led the advance team of the president. And at that moment, the fact that his surname was already in my mind, and that fact that another person in the Emirates flight had told me about a brother that was part of the advance team. I must say that he said he leads the advance team when he spoke to me on the phone. He didn't just say that he is part of the advance team. I said to him, I was not going to live with him. I said this to him in no uncertain terms, and he became, as we spoke, he became increasingly, at first, he became boastful in trying to convince me of his role and importance in the state visit. And then, as I stood my ground to say that I was not going with, he became a little bit aggressive in tone. And at one point he said to me, he was going to call the president and inform the president that I am refusing to come with him. So he told me he's calling the president, he would call me back in a few minutes' time, which he did. When he called me back, he said, the president insists that you must come with me. And then I told him that, please tell the president that I'm not coming. I also insist that I'm not coming. I raised the issues of my safety, that I could not go with foreign people. And also in my mind, because I had been wanting to see the president on South African soil, and I had made several attempts to see the president, it was very strange for me and discomforting that I would get the opportunity, or I'll get invited to see the president on foreign soil. So we had a bit of discussions on the phone. Eventually I made it abundantly clear that I was not going. And later on, I put the receiver down, and later on I even unhooked it. And we had met briefly during the day. As I said, the Chinese delegation had converged around me. And after that encounter on the hotel telephone line, I was very unnerved. I was very frightened. I must say that at that time, issues of my security frightened me a lot, but also in my mind, in addition, I was not going to, because the sun was setting, I was not going to, as a woman, go to President Zuma, who had then and had a reputation with women. So that was the number of factors that I considered. That I wanted to see him in my country. He did not avail himself. He suddenly wants to see me there. At that time, I was not thinking about, other than my security, I was saying, I cannot go and hand myself to a man that's got a reputation with women on a silver platter, driven by strange people. Before I slept, I was considering what next. I called the Chinese delegation, the leader of the Chinese delegation, again on my cell phone, because I was already pondering to cut the visit short because I was frightened and I felt unsafe. But because the mission of making sure that the SOEs of China and South Africa memorandum of understanding becomes part of the, falls under the umbrella of the state visit, was not completely accomplished, I had to touch base with the leader again to say that this mission must still be realized, because in my mind, I had to find a way of making sure that that memorandum of understanding, I must say, what all the companies do in those sessions, the business sessions and the industry sessions and the sector session, they don't sign contracts per se or whatever. It's a ceremonial signing of memoranda of understanding or declaration of intent to cooperate. So these things begins at that level in various sectors and industry and groupings. And at the end of the visit, they are all put together of the signature between the two presidents. So my call to the Chinese leader of the delegation was to make sure that that ceremonial memorandum of understanding sees the light of day. Because it would have been an abortion of my mission if that did not happen. I then decided firmly that we will meet and that I am heading home for my safety and for my security. I must point out that the next leg of the visit, of the state visit, was going to go to Shanghai. So I decided that I'm not going to undertake that leg. I first tried to get hold of my secretary, my PA, to ask her to arrange for me to come back home as soon as she gets a flight back for me, and I could not get her because there is a time difference between China and South Africa. But because from my documents from DTI, I had the information of the travel agency. I directly contacted the travel agency and asked them to put me on the next available flight to South Africa.
Now, you say you brought your return forward. I would like to refer you to bundle D1, which is your main bundle, and in particular, page 226 to 228. That document, if I must explain to you, is a question and reply in Parliament. And the reply is by the then Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Gutpa. This was issued by Parliament on December 6, 2010, and we obtained it from the web. Now, I would like you to have regard to 227, at which you'll find a table. And that table indicates the accommodation arrangement in Part A or Part Roman 1 and under Part Roman 2, the itinerary for your travel from Johannesburg to Beijing, to Shanghai, to Dubai and back to Johannesburg. You see that? Now, from your recollection, does that accord with your itinerary as you left Johannesburg on that date on this China trip? What you have at 227?
You mean in totality?
Yes. When you left Johannesburg to go to China, was that your itinerary to your recollection?
This was supposed to be my itinerary,
Yes.
but I did not fulfill it to completion
Okay.
because I cut the visit short. And in fact, that also means that the amount written there is not the amount spent on my trip, because I did not proceed to the Shanghai leg, and I did not incur hotel accommodation in Shanghai.
Indeed. Now, according to 227, you were scheduled to depart Beijing for Shanghai on the 25th of August 2010. You see that?
Yes.
Now, based on what you stated to the chairperson, you are suggesting that you did not take the Shanghai leg of the trip and instead elected to come back to South Africa.
Yes.
Okay? You may proceed then from that. Thanks for the clarification.
I recall that I had an undertaking that our ceremonial MOE of the issues of Transnet and ESCOM cooperating with those Chinese entities would materialize, because would materialize in terms of becoming under the umbrella of the signature of the two presidents. And I recall me having the Chinese hosting me in a form of an impromptu farewell dinner at my hotel, because I was going back home ahead of time.
Okay? And the arrangements you then made with your secretary or your travel agent, how did you return back to South Africa?
I came back to South Africa via Hong Kong. I do not recall whether I came back via Emirates or what, but I did not fly via Dubai, and I did not fly via Shanghai. I came through via Hong Kong.
Okay. Now, if I could just go back to something you stated, this notion of advanced team. In your conversation with the Gupta brother, I'll call, because you said you just recalled the name Gupta. Was there a discussion about what being part of an advanced team entails and what he was involved with in that context?
Yes, already in the flight I had teased out a little bit, but also because I was asking him questions and he was very boastful about his role. That also came out, but the summary and the gist of it was he is the person that deals with all the logistics and whatever it entails of the, and therefore I cannot kind of refuse to go with him when he is the main guy that deals with those kind of things, security of the president, security of who sees the president, where the president goes to, and logistics for the whole, for the whole trip.
Okay, you are now coming back to South Africa as you stayed via Hong Kong. Can you take the story from there? What then happened? You deal with that at page 17 on your paragraph 58.
Without even looking at that, I think what stands in my mind in Hong Kong is, I know that I should have taken 2 separate airlines from Beijing to South Africa, because I recall collecting my luggage in Hong Kong and checking in for the other leg. And I recall seeing a woman that was under the same circumstances as I was, with a lot of luggage, with a lot of expensive baggage that I admired and envied, expensive stuff that's branded, a very confident lady, beautiful. Later on, through media reports, because the face stuck with me, and I was seeing her for the first time there. Later on, I came to know that she's a woman that got wedded to the president. She must have been returning from the same trip, but we met in Hong Kong and I spotted her, but later in the media I could make out who she was.
Okay, are you suggesting you were on the flight with her from Hong Kong to Johannesburg?
No, I am suggesting that I spotted her. What do you call this thing that brings luggage?
The carousel, or
Yeah, whatever it's called.
where we pick up our suitcases?
Yes.
Okay, yes, carousel.
And you know, when you are in Hong Kong or when you are in mainland China, a fellow African and a fellow South African, a black face, you know, I could figure out that she's South African. But only later, because what drew me to her was the many luggage pieces, the beautiful branded luggage she was collecting. So I did not travel with her in the same flight from
Okay.
Hong Kong to South Africa.
Okay. Does she feature in any manner beyond this in your statement?
No.
Okay. Now, at paragraph 58, you make certain conclusions regarding the Speaker of Parliament and the Public Protector.
Regarding the investigations around the China trip,
It is still under the China trip, you say, shortly after my return from China.
yes. Shortly when I came back from China, a journalist from Sunday Times called me. Shortly thereafter, there were these things in the media that I abused, so to speak, my authority by asking Transnet to pay for me. Subsequent to that, there was a complaint by Minister Barbara Hogan, who was not part of the state visit, to the Speaker, and a DA member had also complained to the Public Protector. That resulted in the Public Protector and the Speaker of Parliament separately doing an inquiry into the circumstances around how Transnet got to pay for me. And both of them separately asked me to forward documents, explain myself, and I did so. I forwarded all the documents I had to the public protector, and I think I forwarded the letter of invitation to Parliament as well, and the letters. At the end of the process, those inquiries, not the public protector, neither the Speaker of Parliament concluded that I was guilty of any offense. In fact, I've seen for the first time, I did not even know that I saw from the information that came from Parliament that some committees were supposed to be seized with the matter for about a year, but not the public protector, nor the Speaker found anything untoward, concluded that there was, as far as I know, that there was anything untoward.
Okay, Chair, if I may address two issues. Ms. Mentor makes reference to documents received from Parliament. These are part of the supplementary bundle. Now, D2, if I recall, we called it. If I may refer Ms. Mentor then to D2, which we call the supplementary bundle. And while Ms. Mentor tries to locate that file, or her place in the file, the Commission, through the Secretariat, directed an inquiry to Parliament requesting all and any documents relating to this trip, any inquiries conducted by Parliament, any proceedings subsequently held in regard to that inquiry, and any findings that Parliament made. And the documents that we received are what is in the supplementary bundle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Mentor, you referred to a complaint by the minister, and by the minister we mean the Minister of Public Enterprises. In bundle D2, please refer to
Minister of
Public
at the time.
Enterprises at the time.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you want to identify her? Was it her? I think it was her.
I'll have the witness confirm.
Okay.
At the time of your trip to China, who was the Minister of Public Enterprises?
It was Minister Barbara Hogan.
Do you know until when she held that position?
I beg yours?
Do you know until what date she held that position?
I think she was recalled or reshuffled around at the end of October 2010.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, please turn to page 40 of D2, bundle D2. Do you recognize that it's a letter addressed to the Speaker of the National Assembly? And if you turn over leaf, it's dated 29/09/2010, which is the 29th of September, 2010, seemingly under the hand of Ms. Barbara Hogan, Minister of Public Enterprises. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever seen this letter before?
I only saw it on Friday.
Now, do you understand what that letter is?
As a whole, I understand it to claim that I undertook a trip on a personal capacity. That's what 3 is pointing out to.
Okay. Now, if you flip further to page 42, it's a document dated the 6th of October 2010. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Please tell the chairperson what it is.
I beg yours?
Please tell the chairperson what that document is at page 42.
This is a letter written to me to the Speaker of Parliament,
Sorry, written? This is a
By
letter?
me.
Okay,
written by me to the Speaker of Parliament.
yes.
It was private and confidential at that time. I was responding to a letter. I was responding to the issues that were raised by Minister Barbara Hogan when she complained to the Speaker about my trip that she termed personal capacity.
Now, if you go further on to page 45, we are provided with a further letter. Can you identify for the record what that letter is?
Yes, it is letter written to me by the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Max Sisulu, informing me that he had forwarded Minister Barbara Hogan's complaint to be considered by a committee that was chaired by House Chair, Mr. Obed Bapila.
And that is dated, what's the date of that letter?
It's dated the 14th of October, 2010.
Thank you.
Ms. Selo, this whole issue about the complaint against the witness is not really relevant for our purposes, is it?
It doesn't go to,
Isn't the position that maybe you are just getting the witness to talk, to give evidence about it in anticipation of being cross-examined on it or something?
not really.
But is it really relevant for our purposes?
It's not relevant directly to our terms of reference. It is relevant based on the conclusion that the witness makes at 58.
I assume that conclusion is relevant to the terms of reference.
Eventually, invariably, it will be, Chair, because of the conclusions she draws at her paragraph 21 of her statement.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. And I would then like to refer you to the last document in that bundle, Ms. Mentor. It appears at page 216 of the same bundle, the supplementary bundle D2.
What page again?
216, Chair. This is a letter at 217. It shows that it's signed by MV Sisulu, MP, Speaker of the National Assembly. It's the same letter, right?
Correct?
Have you seen the, could you just briefly state to the chairperson what that letter indicates?
This letter, which I only saw on Friday, is written by the Speaker to Mr. Johnny DeLange, Mr. JH, I assume is Johnny DeLange MP. It deals with Minister Barbara Hogan's complaint about my trip to China, and in the letter he refers the matter to the committee that Johnny DeLange MP was chairing at the time.
And what committee is that for the record?
I had concluded that
On the, at page 216, the addressee, does it not indicate?
oh yes. It was it was forwarded to the Chairperson of Powers and Privileges Committee,
Mr. De Lange at the time.
Mr. Dilane.
Chair, notwithstanding a direct request to Parliament, that is the totality of documentation received in regard to the inquiry or investigation pertaining to Ms. Mentor's trip to China.
The witness wants to say something.
Thank you,
Yes, Ms.
Chairperson,
Mentor.
for recognizing me. I would like to read the fourth paragraph of, the third paragraph of that letter,
Okay, by all means,
which I only caught sight of now,
yes.
that, because I was wondering why would the speaker forward this matter to Powers and Privileges, and the reason why I didn't even know. The third paragraph says,
Just a second, let me assist the chairperson. It's the one at 216, Chair, of D2. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mentor.
as you are no doubt aware, the cabinet reshuffle at the time, resulted in Mr. Mapela taking up the executive post. I understand this to mean that the speaker had placed this matter on Mr. Mapela's committee, and then because he was promoted to a deputy chair position,
Deputy Minister, I think.
a deputy minister position, and because as a result, he and his committee did not consider the matter, he forwarded it to another committee, which is Powers and Privileges.
Understood. And maybe for completeness, there is an instruction at page 217 of that letter to Mr. De Lange.
I therefore refer the matter to the committee in terms of Rule 194 and kindly request to be kept informed of the committee's findings and recommendations.
Now, were you ever informed of any findings formally?
I had received a hand-delivered letter from the speaker. I think it was a handwritten letter that concluded by saying, I now consider the matter closed. In that letter, he outlined everything and recognizing the letter, the whole process, closing the matter without saying the process has found me guilty.
Thank you. As I confirm, Chair, the documents provided to us did not include a finding contemplated in the last paragraph of that letter by the Speaker of Parliament. We now at paragraph 59 starting at paragraph 59 of your statement, Ms. Mentor, and you deal with that up to, at quite some length, up to paragraph 102 at page 29, under the heading, the offer made of the position of Minister of Public Enterprises. Starting with what you have reflected in your paragraph 59, could you tell the chairperson about this offer of position of Minister of Public Enterprises, when it was made and how it came about?
Chairperson, I had been trying to meet with President Zuma to discuss the matter of the Pebble Bed Modular Reactor, which is abbreviated as PBMR, a nuclear research project of government that's situated at Pelendaba in Pretoria, outside Pretoria. I must say that before making several attempts to meet President Zuma, I had also made successful attempts to discuss the same matter with the caretaker president, who was Mr. Khalima Mutlante. And I had discussed the matter also with a minister of energy at the time. This was necessitated by several confusing pronouncements in the public space on the intention to close the pebble bed modular reactor. As a chair of public enterprises, I had, even before this matter, when we were dealing with the electricity shortage issues, I would convene joint meetings between my Committee of Public Enterprises and the Committee of Energy, sometimes the Committee of Transport, because Transnet fell under the Portfolio Committee on Transport. My first port of call on understanding the pronouncements was with the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Energy, who was a certain Dr. Ngaba, who is a qualified nuclear scientist. We did not, he strongly felt that the PBMR should be closed, and I held a different view, because we had already spent, as government, 8 billion rand on the project, and we're spending. We had trained a lot of human capital on the matter, and the project was strategic and was yielding very good results. Like, it was at that stage already producing isotopes, which are important in the field of nuclear medicine, and we were exporting those isotopes. So for me, the announcements were reckless and were not taking into account the various factors. I was also concerned about the intellectual property rights of the project, because that project was located under ESCOM, and ESCOM had a partnership with a company, an American energy company called Westinghouse. So for me, there was a rush in pronouncements to close the project. And in trying to understand, I scurried around, I put this matter before the committee, I scurried around, I even took the committee to Pelendaba.
Sorry, Ms. Mentor. Ms. Silo,
Okay.
do we really need all those details, or is it sufficient if we know that in her position as chair of the portfolio committee that she was chairing, she had issues that she wanted to raise with the president in regard to the project that she has mentioned? Do we need the details?
I would agree, Chair, we do not. I was loath to interrupt the witness when the witness is trying to share with the chair what they consider important, but I agree with the chair that for purposes, and particularly the heading under which these matters are canvassed, that detail is not necessary.
Yeah, maybe you may be trying to strike a balance between letting her testify and not you testifying from the bar.
Indeed.
And leading her, but maybe you should lead her more in terms of directing her to what exactly you are looking for.
I'm happy to, Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Mentor, you've understood the Chair's point, and I think you have made the point that you had tried to see the previous president and what it was about. You will recall that now we want to get to the offer ostensibly made to you of a cabinet position. So if then we could get closer to the date on which this offer is made, I think it would be.
Maybe let's do it this way, Ms. Mentor. You were chair of what portfolio committee at the time?
Public Enterprises, Chairperson.
In that capacity, did you have any issues you wanted to raise with the former president?
Yes, Chairperson, it was particularly the issue of the Pebble Bed Medullary Actor and the intention of government or the state to shut it down. And I wanted to secure, amongst others, that the intellectual property rights pertaining to that project are retained by South Africa.
Yes, did you ever get to meet the president?
Not until the day I had telephone contact one particular Sunday.
Okay.
Yes.
So you did ultimately meet the president, but you want
But
to
we
tell
did
us
not
how
even
that came
discuss
about.
the issue.
Yes, but you want to tell us how it came about that you did meet him, and then you can tell us about what transpired when you met him. Okay? Tell us about how it came about that you met him, and then you can tell us whether that meeting was what you were expecting when you wanted a meeting with him and what transpired. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
On the Sunday evening, I received a call from Ms. Lakela Kaunda informing me that the meeting that I had been seeking to hold with the president is going to happen the next day, on a Monday.
Are you able to tell us the Sunday, what date, if you are able, and you can look at your statement if that will remind you?
I'm not sure of the exact date, Chair, except that I know that it was post the China trip.
The month and the year?
It was post the China trip. It was before the China trip was towards the end of August, and it was before the reshuffling of Minister Barbara Hogan, and that happened at the end of October. So this was somewhere between mid-September and October. I would say mid-September and October, because when I finally met the president in Saxonwold, amongst other things, I recall saying to the president, I apologize, President, for refusing to see you in China 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so this was sometime between September, or from September to sometime in October?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
On that note, may I inquire whether you have any written record of the actual travel that Monday morning, that Monday? Would you still have it with you or not? I do appreciate it's been a passage of 8 years.
I wanted to say that, Chair, that it's not a natural thing to keep boarding passes and stuff.
Yes.
I don't even have a diary of 8 years ago.
Okay.
Well, if there are those records in the bundle, you can direct her attention to them if there's anything that would help her remember.
We do have certain records in the bundle, Chair, in these bundles, but may I refer to them at a later moment, but we definitely will be dealing with those records. I just wanted to confirm with the witness that she doesn't have her own personal records of this trip to assist the chairperson in stating the actual date.
It's just that it's helpful for everybody to follow the story if one can have some date. It doesn't have to be the exact date, maybe in due course you can deal with that. But what she has said is it would have been some time from September to October, somewhere there. Okay, all right. Maybe later on you will.
I will deal
yeah,
with the records of
okay,
it that we've
all right.
managed to
Okay.
locate, Chair, with your permission.
Okay, thank you. She may proceed.
If I may go back to the issue of the dates, if you allow me, Chairperson. The state visit was around end of August. And if I say to the President, forgive me for refusing to see you 2 weeks ago in China, that places us in the almost in the middle of September. Not exactly in the middle. 2 weeks can mean 10 days, it can mean 14 days. And so and also there is an intervening time that I'm talking about between that trip and the recall of Barbara Hogan.
And for the record, when you say August, mid-September, October, all this is the same year, 2010.
Yes.
Thank you. You then had just testified that you had communicated with Ms. Kaunda on the Sunday. Can you tell the chairperson how that communication came about? Who initiated that communication?
It was a telephone call from Ms. Kaunda.
Yes.
I highly appreciated, I had two feelings. I was excited that all my efforts of wanting to see the President was now producing a meeting. But I was concerned that the meeting is the following morning. And the following morning, I was in Cape Town. The meeting was going to be, in my understanding, around Pretoria or the Union Building or in the Gauteng province.
Can I just interject? I don't think that you have informed the chairperson yet as to the content of your conversation with Ms. Kaunda. Are you able to recount what was said?
Ms. Kaunda said to me, the meeting that I've been seeking with the President will take place the next day, the next morning. And in that conversation, there was somebody that was going to call me, a gentleman, pertaining to the meeting. I do not recall. I know that in that conversation, I got a name of Atul. I do not recall if, I also got a number for Atul. I do not recall if I asked her for the number or she gave it, but I got Atul's number from her as the person that would be dealing with the logistics for my trip. I pointed out to her that if I was to travel the next morning, I was on crutches. And I would need a passenger assistance unit. And if according to my knowledge then, you need to apply for a passenger assistance unit 2 days ahead of time. And I offered that because I have tickets from Parliament, I could arrange the ticket myself and see if I get the PA unit myself. I also inquired from her, once I land, how do I proceed from the airport? And I learned from her that the person whose name and number I got from her would be addressing that concern of myself. And she told me that Atul was going to phone me in the next few minutes. In the next few minutes, we did speak on the phone, myself and Atul. And I had asked how would I travel from the airport, and I was assured that arrangements would be made. So also with Atul, it was confirmed that there would be 2 people waiting for me at the airport.
And who made the confirmation about the 2 people waiting for you at the airport? Is that Mr. Atul Gupta or is that Ms. Kaunda?
Ms. Kaunda, I recall, and I'm relying on my memory now, I recall that he said I need not worry as Atul would address those issues.
Okay.
And Atul assured me that I need not worry, because I asked, do I rent a car? I am on crutches. Atul assured me that I need not worry. There would be people picking me up.
Okay.
So I took that flight. It was a South African Airways flight, in my memory.
And now it's which day?
It's a Monday morning.
Thank
It is a 6 o'clock flight.
Okay.
Because according to Ms. Lakela, my meeting was going to be in the morning, like it was not going to be in the afternoon. I did not have the leisure of traveling. I had to take the 6 o'clock flight. I have been trying to search my memory if I did get a passenger assistant unit for myself for that flight, and I don't remember being wheeled on a wheelchair to meet the 2 gentlemen that were waiting for me at ORT. When I arrived, there were 2 gentlemen waiting for me.
Okay. Now, when you say when you have arrived, you have now landed at OR Tambo Airport.
Yes, ma'am.
You recall earlier in your testimony, the chair wanted reference to your travel itinerary for that period to determine the date on which you flew to Johannesburg. Chair, if I may refer you to D2, bundle D2, that is what we call the supplementary bundle, Ms. Mentor, in particular to page 226. That document goes from 226 to 227, Chair. And to place it in its proper context, Ms. Mentor signed a consent form that SAA should release all her travel details between the months of July and November 2010. And the document that appears at 226 to 227 is the document furnished by SAA in response to the request. On a proper analysis, it would appear that this is not the list of travel, it actually is a duplication. The dates run from 01 July 2010 to 26 November 2010. And those dates appear in the left column under the heading flight date. Now, if the chairperson were to have regard to about midway, that document, the chairperson will realize the date of 26 November 2010 at page 226. Immediately after that date is the date of 1st July 2010. And I realize that it's actually a repetition of what is above.
I'm not sure if I follow. Are we at 226 and 227?
226 and 227 is one document, Chair.
Yeah,
I am at 226.
right.
The first entry at the very top is 1st July 2010.
Yeah,
The dates will go consecutively until the date of 26 November 2010, which is about midway of your document, Chair.
yes, I can see that.
Now, if the Chair would just draw a line under that date,
Yeah,
because that is followed by another of 1st July 2010.
yeah,
And if you compare the dates appearing thereunder with the ones above, this appears to be a duplication of what is at the top, the first half of 226.
okay.
So I would recommend, Chair, that we draw a line under the 26th of November 2010.
Okay.
The second issue I should raise, Chair, is these are flights Ms. Mentor supposedly took on South African Airways between the dates of 1st July to the 26th of November. There are a number of issues that appear from these documents. And in particular, if the Chair has regard to the date of the 17th of July 2010, Ms. Mentor is meant to have left Cape Town for Johannesburg. But there is no return to Cape Town. And that again happens on the 28th of August and the 2nd. So the sense
Or
that
she might have used another airline to return.
I was getting to that point, Chair. Ms. Mentor insists that to her recollection it was an SAA flight. Hence, the request was limited to SAA. When one has regard to the dates listed there, the 2nd of September to the 31st of October, none of them follow on a Monday. And none of them can be read to be a Monday flight, arriving in Johannesburg in the morning and back in Cape Town in the evening. Much as Ms. Mentor is confident that it is SAA, she has indicated that she might have made an error. So what the Commission has done is to request all details from all airlines that service the Cape Town-Johannesburg route. That is the first. The second is we would require SAA or somebody from SAA to testify about this record. There are certain discrepancies. So in response to the question you posed, Chair, this is the best we have by way of record. I would like to place on record that on our analysis, it would appear incomplete. And until SAA has testified before you under oath as to its completeness and correctness, that this document is not conclusive of any fact, and in fact does not answer the question posed by the Chair as to the exact date on which Ms. Mentor traveled. So I would request that that issue remains open or be kept open until we have received the records of the other airlines and all other relevant documentation we may raise.
Okay, thank you.
With that qualification, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now I had indicated I wanted to deal with the record of your travel in response to the question posed by the Chair. From what you have testified to thus far, you now have landed at OR Tambo. And can you take the conversation from there?
There are indeed two men holding a placard with my name, surname, name on. And I approached them. I'm having only my handbag and my crutches. The other one takes my handbag, and the conversation goes like, how are you, Miss Mentor? The normal stuff that when human beings meet do. The people were wearing, the two men were Indian looking, were wearing dark suits, were wearing sunglasses, dark sunglasses, and were having two-way communicators. They appeared to me that they could be attaches truly to an office of a president. They lead me over an escalator and they pay for the ticket, and we get into dark, black actually, vehicle, which is twin cab. Before I even get into the vehicle, I would say that I may have recognized Rajesh. I don't recall if I recognized the other person from anywhere. page through the glossy magazine. That was a cricket magazine. And we leave the airport. Initially, I don't recall having any concerns of the initial direction. Like if you drive from the airport, if you head to Lenasia or Soweto, you would immediately get consent. So I was not over concerned with the direction. So my head was in what I was doing in the car, not paying particular attention to the road, but not concerned that we're not heading the right direction. Up until the vehicle began to take certain turns, and up until the vehicle became stationary at a place where, when I looked outside, I saw that we have parked in a open parking, and we are at a building that's written Sahara.
On that score, you deal with that at your paragraph 68 of the statement, and you have annexed pictures that you have marked MPM1. You confirm that?
Where?
At paragraph 68 of your statement,
37B.
your statement, do you have it before you?
Yes,
Paragraph 68, 68, page 20.
Yes.
You refer in that paragraph to pictures or pictures of a building, and you have marked those MPM1. Now, if you turn to page 37, bracket A, there are two pictures, 37B as well, and that's what you call your MPM1. Is that the building you were taken to? Can I just find...
I'm sorry, Ms. Mentor, you have to articulate your answer. If you not, the record won't record that.
That's quite correct. Thank you, Chair. Then, Ms. Mentor, I repose my question. Is that the building you were taken to that you refer to at your paragraph 68, where you say, I noticed that Sahara was written on the outside of the building?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, can you tell the chairperson when these pictures were taken and where they come from?
I beg yours?
The pictures MPM1, where do they come from, and do you know when they were taken? Did you take them on the day?
No, I didn't take pictures.
Okay. And you have annexed them to your statement. Where do you get them from?
I think they're from the media.
Okay. I just wanted that clarification. So then you say you were taken to this building appearing at MPM1. Yes, Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mentor. MPM1 and MPM1. So these are not photographs that were taken by you,
Yes, Chair, I did not take them.
and they are not photographs taken by anybody at your request.
Yes, Chair, I did.
Yes. Are you able to say that they represent a building that you saw on the day in question, or are you not able to say that?
Chair, from where the building was parked, this Sahara on MPM1 is in line with the Sahara I saw on the building. The parking lot is also similar. So I think this is the place I was taken to.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I realize I think it's 12:59. Might this be an opportune moment? Thank you, Chair.
We'll take the lunch adjournment and we'll be back at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair. Coastal